Hello and welcome to this episode of One Take CEO Interviews, which is brought to you today by the executive consulting firm Platinum Group. I'm pleased to be talking with Doug Jaeger, President and CEO of Ulteig Engineers, which provides engineering services primarily in the lifeline sectors of power, renewables, transportation, and water. Clients include cities, counties, states, the federal government, utilities, construction companies, and developers. Ulteig recently acquired NLS Engineering, a firm widely recognized as one of the most experienced integrators in North American energy and water sectors. And it was an acquisition that will bring to Ulteig a little bit more experience in the solar, battery storage, water, and wastewater arenas. Doug, thank you for joining us and welcome to One Take.
Well, thank you, Dale. Excited to be here.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about your company before the acquisition I just mentioned. What's it best known for doing and in what parts of the country? How many employees did you have before the acquisition? Just tell us a little bit about what it was before you made this acquisition.
Great. Well, Ulteig has been around for quite a while. We were founded in the basement of the home of Melvin Ulteig in Fargo, North Dakota in 1944. The story goes that Mel wanted to bring electricity to the rural parts of North Dakota. So he started a company with two other employees, his wife and a land surveyor in his basement in Fargo. Fast forward to today, prior to the acquisition of NLS, we had about 700 employees and do business in 44 states, or did business in 44 states, now adding Canada. And we've got 13 offices, three primary larger offices in Denver, Fargo, and St. Paul, and then 10 other smaller offices kind of scattered around the center of the United States.
And is the 700 employees with the acquisition or was that before?
Before. We added another 40 with the acquisition of NLS, which stands for Next Level SCADA.
Okay, cool. And you have a office here in Minneapolis too.
Yes.
It's one of those cities. So how did COVID-19 affect your business? And you know, I mean, did it affect your clients, and how did it affect your employees, and how did you navigate through all of it?
Yeah, well, like everyone else, a lot of change, right? We all had to pivot. We all had to sort of think differently about how we serve our clients and how we work with our employees. I would say, you know, certainly with gratitude, our business, because we serve the essential lifeline sectors we do, our business kept forging ahead without much interruption to the ability to continue to grow and serve clients. That said, we did have to pivot. You know, we had to, like everyone else, we had to double down on focusing on our employees and committing to employee engagement and committing to culture in a way that was different. While we were able to move toward a 100% remote environment a year ago, March, pretty easily because we had the technology in place and we had great team members who were ready to pivot, we still had to figure out, hey, how do you operate culture when we're all working distant at home? So that was one challenge we needed to overcome. The second one was how do we stay focused on our North Star, our strategy going forward? We have a pretty robust accelerated growth strategy, and we wanted to make sure that we stayed focused on that as our North Star for continuation of growth. And then last of all, staying connected to clients was different. We are a client-focused firm. Everything we do is about serving clients. And that often involves being on client sites. Well, we weren't able to do that for the last year and a half. So we had to think differently with technology and incorporate new technology into the equation about how we serve uniquely differently. And part of that was getting clients to accept technology, and part of that was us adopting technologies that were new to us.
That must still have been hard though. You know, I mentioned before we hit the record button, we're doing a home remodel here, and just being on the site every day, you know, looking at the plans, cross-checking with all these things, it seems like, how can you do that without being there, especially from an engineering standpoint? How can you continue to engineer? Because it always seems like you need to have that interaction on a continuous basis for major projects.
Yeah, eyes out on site are really important, certainly from an inspection, quality inspection and commissioning standpoint. One kind of cool story is we leveraged existing tools that are out there. So Microsoft makes a product called HoloLens, and we are a big Microsoft client. We leveraged Microsoft HoloLens, which is basically kind of a Google Glass type technology, to be present without being present.
Wow.
So we would send an engineer down to a site in Texas, and he would be wearing the Microsoft HoloLens technology, and our client would have 30 people back in Minneapolis, St. Paul, sitting in a room as if they're on site. And he could incorporate the design onto the HoloLens. He could touch and feel different things on the site and point out different things that were being commissioned. So it really was a great way to get everyone there without having to be there. That's one tool that we love.
Well, now I know I can go spend some time in Denver or out in the Rockies, and I can just tune in using that and see how the project's going. I don't have to be here, so I have to look
You're
into
right.
it.
You're right. I actually attended a CEO conference that's put on every year for CEOs in the engineering industry. It's put on by a group called Morrissey Goodale, and usually we go to Boston and we sit in Fenway Park and we have the event there. Well, they incorporated the Oculus lenses, and I, through virtual reality, attended a CEO summit in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, and I was in the room with 20 other CEOs, and we could look at each other and talk to each other and be present in Sydney, Australia. So new ways to do it.
Yeah. How much do you think we'll go back to not using that technology? Because it sounds like it's still going to be something that you can use and you will use, but then on the other side, the interperson experience, the collaboration, the going to Australia and actually just, bumping into people over, hors d'oeuvres and drinks. How are you going to do this as a company? Will it go back to the way it was, 100%, 50%?
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's two thoughts I have on that. One is with respects to our engagement with clients. Like I said before, we're really into client relationship, client touch, client service. 100% of what we do is serving clients and solving problems, and often that's done best when we can sit across the room from each other or get out to a job site with each other. I think much of this will certainly be driven by our clients' expectations and wishes, but I think we will see probably 75% of what we did before as normal continue. We will be out on client sites and we will be present, but I do think we'll be incorporating technology to make travel less frequent and less required, and do many of the tasks that can be done with technology, using technology. I think we learned a lot. And it would be a shame to walk away from what we learned, but it's not going to fully replace that client intimacy. The second piece of that I would touch on is with our employees. You and I have had some chance to talk about what's the workplace of the future look like. We went to 100% remote like everyone else pretty much did. But early on, we decided one of our tenets of our culture is flexibility. So what do we want to do going forward? So we reached out to our employees and we asked them, if given the option of working from home as your principal office or working in one of the office locations as your principal office 3 or 4 days a week, what would you choose? And early on, we had about 45% of our employees say that they would continue to work remotely in their homes. Now we're thinking it's probably closer to 30, 35%. We're good with that going forward. We will leverage that hybrid model, but what we're doing with the space then is turning it into a more attractive, collaborative, innovative space where people want to come and work together. So we think we'll use our offices more as collaboration centers, and you can functionally do your work at home, in your office, or wherever you want to be. We do, however, want you to come into the office on occasion to team with each other and work, collaborate, and develop new ideas.
Yeah, and the collaboration space is interesting. I've talked with other CEOs about this, and also in the past, you used to hear about the startups, where the startups would have like ping pong tables and all this stuff and beanbag chairs. And then years back when I worked at Lawson, we had a company we bought in Stockholm, and they had this really great place in their lobby where they had free coffee, fruit, and other things, and employees would collaborate around that. How are you envisioning what you'll be doing for a collaboration space?
It's going to affect our facility decisions. We've been talking with our facilities team a lot, and we lease all of our properties, but those leases have end dates. And one of the things for us is we're going to locate where there are amenities. We've got to have amenities, attractive space for people to grab coffee and go huddle up and sit down. Certainly we'll provide that in the location, but sometimes people like Caribou or Starbucks better than what we provide. We also want to be near spaces where people can go take a walk, go out for a run, grab a bike ride, shower in the office before coming back to work. So we want to provide some of that physical energy capability as well. But we had ping pong tables and pinball tables and dartboards before the pandemic, and we're going to continue to have them. We did hire, however, an architect to say, all right, how can we incorporate some of that into our innovation areas? So now we've created innovation areas in all of the offices where people can use electronic whiteboards and come together and start thinking out loud and brainstorming and use some of that kinetic energy in innovation as well. So that's going to be a big part of it. And we couldn't have done that if 100% of our employees were coming to call this their principal office, because we just didn't have the space. Right. Now we've got the space, so let's leverage the space for new ways.
And Doug, how are you looking at recruiting too? It used to be that the talent that we needed, because they had to be in the office, they had to be somebody who would live within our geographic area where we had an office. Are you looking at recruiting differently now because people don't have to necessarily be at an office?
Yeah, absolutely. When I said earlier that we are present in 44 states and we've got 13 offices, our expansion on offices is driven primarily by talent. So we have a game plan. That's one of our bold steps of our strategic plan. We call it Geographic Expansion Team. And the GET has put together a plan for expansion that says, as we find an area in the country, wherever that might be, actually in North America, where we have 5 or more people who are outstanding talent to add to our team, we'll create a little collaboration center in that community. They can office out of their homes, but we at least want a space for those 5 to come together periodically. So we will start opening these collaboration centers around talent. I'll give you another example. For our executive team, I just hired a new executive. She started a week and a half ago. Her name's Ava, and Ava lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. We don't have presence in Charlotte, North Carolina, but you know what? Ava is an outstanding leader of client solutions, marketing and sales, and she is, as far as I'm concerned, the best candidate I could find. And my discussion with Ava was, stay in Charlotte, live in Charlotte. You can use technology to interact. I just need you present with our clients, present with our team members, and we'll get an apartment in St. Paul. And you can periodically move between, but we want to be flexible and operate in a way that we're getting the best talent wherever they will be. So I guess the summary I would say is we're casting our net wide for talent because we know we need the diverse talent and we care less about the four walls of a building that they have to report to.
Well, that sounds really interesting. And what you just mentioned previous to that too, about setting up small collaboration centers or mini offices where the talent is versus expecting the talent to come to your office. Yeah. I haven't heard of that one. I'm sure probably other people are doing that too, but it's interesting how we continue to change. It used to be that you'd have to fit your candidates to fit a job description, and then we transitioned to, fitting a job description around the best candidate a little bit. Yeah. And now you're fitting an office around the best candidates and the best people. So that's really interesting.
Our growth rate has dictated that. We've grown, the company has grown over 20% a year for the last 5 years, each of the last 5 years.
Wow.
And what that translates to a service business like ours is more people. We've grown from 300 to 700 employees in 5 years. And we're not going to find all those talented, gifted people in Denver or Fargo or Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're going to find them all over. Mm-hmm. And we know we can do it, and we can serve clients from anywhere.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what would you say, when you look back in the last 12 months, there was a lot that happened. And I have a couple more questions I want to ask you before we run out of time here. But what was your greatest challenge since March of 2020?
Two things, and I'll be quick on both of them. But one was, I said earlier, we wanted to stay true to our strategic plan and our North Star. One of the elements of our strategic plan was to grow our system integration business, which is often referred to as SCADA. And we came across this opportunity to get to know Next Level SCADA, NLS, in Hamilton, Ontario. They had been a partner of ours doing work with us on opportunities, but now we wanted to talk about acquiring their business and bringing it into the Ulteig family. And just about the time we got going on those conversations, COVID hit. And as you know, we couldn't cross over the border into Canada, and it made it really difficult to get to know each other culturally and strategically and really understand each other as people when you're doing it 100% remotely. So we got crafty. They were able to come into the United States here and there, so we were able to have their leadership team present with us and meet some offsites and do so safely and following all the protocols. And then we leveraged the heck out of technology, and we were able to make it work. And we brought two organizations together, and it's moving ahead successfully, but that wasn't easy. And it was a little nerve-wracking to acquire a business across the border during a time where you've never really gotten together. And I still to this day haven't been to their office because we can't go there.
Did you use the goggles to be able to see what their office?
I should have done that. I didn't think of that one. I should have gotten the goggles and gotten into their space.
Yeah.
The other one that I would tell you that was just not so much of a challenge as much of a learning opportunity. The buzz about Ulteig is our culture. There's absolutely no question in my mind what makes us great is that we've got a vibrant, lively culture where people have fun, come to work. We always say we do serious work, we just don't take ourselves too seriously. And it got harder when everyone was working in their home remotely. And yeah, we did the happy hours, and yeah, we did the coffees, and yeah, we did all the things you can do virtually, but it's not the same. And so we now are back in the office in every one of our locations, with the exception of Hamilton, Ontario, and people have the option to come in, and we're slowly seeing people trickle in. So there's a question mark on my mind about how we're going to have to adapt that culture, because a good share of our employees are going to choose to continue to work from home.
Yep. And on the culture front and with employees, the whole idea of talent, another issue that came up, of course, in the last year was that of diversity and inclusion. How does your company deal with those subjects?
Yeah, we had a lot of social challenges, didn't we? And many of them in our backyard. And one of the things that is, I think, healthy for Ulteig is one of our three values is integrity. And inside of integrity is respect for every individual and inclusion of every individual. We have, as we've been growing and casting that net wider, we have come to recognize that we've got a lot of work to do to create a workforce that represents the client base and the communities that we serve. And therefore, one of our bold steps in our strategic plan going forward is to double down on diversity and inclusion. And we will do so by finding places where we can attract folks who make us stronger, better, smarter, because they bring experiences and energy and talents that come from different places than what we might expect from some of our past. So we're really focused on that heavily. We're doing a lot of diversity workshops. We're doing a lot of work with our managing team to think about how we can increase our pool of candidates, and then how we can really focus on an environment where every single person feels their voice is heard, no matter what their background is and no matter what their experiences are. So it's a huge part of our future.
Well, it also helps that you're going to those mini offices, collaboration centers,
yeah,
where you go to where the talent is. So that might help on that front too.
Yeah, absolutely. One good example of that is Austin, Texas. We opened Austin, Texas as a small collaboration center. It expanded. We had about 25 people. We're now looking for new space. We're going to be 50 people in Austin, and we're bringing in a whole different level of background and experience in Austin, Texas, as opposed to St. Paul, Minneapolis, or Fargo.
Yep. Well, Doug, any questions, anything else I should have asked you today that I didn't ask you? I mean, I'd like to keep talking with you for a long time, but we're running short. Anything else we should talk about?
I would just say maybe the thing to hit back on is the reason we started talking was because of this acquisition that we announced of NLS. And I would say, just to echo the point, that you don't need to set your strategy aside when the world around you changes dramatically. And we learned that in spades in working with NLS. We are so excited about this team of system integration engineers that we've added to the organization. They're already involved in many of our client relationships. They're already involved in teams, and we are leveraging technology in a way to make this as seamless as possible. I do look forward to crossing the border and getting up to Hamilton without Oculus lenses. I hope to get up there in August or September as soon as we can cross the border and meet all the teams. But I think my message would be that we at least figured out how to successfully execute that strategy during this time, and I think everyone else could do the same.
Yeah, and did you like cut back on sleep and not take vacations at all for the last 12 months, basically? I mean, you and your executive team, because you had the COVID situation and then you were doing this acquisition and you mentioned how difficult it was because you couldn't go across the border. So how did you and your senior leadership team deal with those issues on a personal front?
Yeah, that's a really good place to end. I think we all found, every organization I talked to, every CEO I talked to found that people spent too much time working during COVID as opposed to less time because everything was right there, and walk downstairs and jump on your computer and get involved at work at all hours of the day. We really pushed PTO time for our employees. We really encouraged them, even if it means just taking a day off and going and doing some project in your home or something different in your neighborhood. As time moved forward, though, people got creative, including me. And my wife and I were empty nesters, and we said, you know what? We can work anywhere now. So we hopped in the car and we took a 22-day trip around the Western United States and got in some skiing, some sun down in Southern California, and hit all the national parks on the way. And we worked about 50% of the time and played about 50% of the time. And that caused me to be, that was at the end of March. That just gave me a whole refreshed start to a new dynamic coming out of COVID. And I think a lot of people found creative ways to do things like that during this pandemic.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Well, here's to enjoying summer, and congratulations too on everything that you were able to achieve for you and your employees. It sounds like you all did really well in the last 12 months. So congratulations on all that.
Oh, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. It's 100% because of 750 employees who all leaned in, and pretty excited about the future that everyone's going to have here together. So thanks for taking the time with us, Dale. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Doug, thank you for joining us today. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Platinum Group, which for 40 years has helped businesses deal with transitions, turnarounds, financial challenges, crises. If your company needs help or would just like a second opinion, you can learn more about the Platinum Group at theplatinumgrp.com, or you can give us a call anytime at 952-829-5700. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on One Take.